Hello YouTubers, we're back to building our wallet and we're coming down the home stretch. So where we left off this last time was we got these two pieces in this center section glued, and so what we want to do is go ahead and stitch the interior pocket to separate it and to create our finished edge, because that's going to be the interior of our wallet. And then we're going to want to take the corresponding exterior edge and go ahead and finish it before we marry them together. So what we'll want to do is go ahead and sand these edges, and the way I like to do it is to sand it with a Dremel tool. Makes it a lot quicker. So let's see if we can get this done with a Dremel tool tonight. Make it look a lot better. And a lot quicker. We could do it with various pieces of sandpaper, but it wouldn't be as quick. So I like using a Dremel tool because we can turn it on. And we can kind of quickly go through here and sand the edges real quickly. Where we want these to be. Make sure it's nice and smooth. Also sands off the glue that we have on there. Evens everything up, because even as we get it as close as we can, it still doesn't get it perfectly close. So we're going to go ahead and get this one of my other YouTubes yesterday, one of the comments was that they said it sounded like that my Dremel was a drunken Dremel, saying that it didn't want to sand anymore, or something like that. I like using this Dremel tool a lot better than sanding, because the Dremel tool is much quicker and it gets things done a lot quicker, more efficient, and gets those edges nice and smooth. It helps to sculpt those edges a little bit, whereas sandpaper, it takes a little bit more to do that. Plus on sandpaper you have to take different weights and use those. You got to go from a heavier weight to a lighter weight. The heavier weight gets off a lot of the leather, and a lighter weight smooths it down. Whereas on the Dremel tool, you can just turn the power up a little bit, and the same weight will do everything for you at the same time. So let's go ahead and brush this off, and then we'll be ready to mark this up, do some stitching. And then finish those edges. Okay. So let's go ahead and move this back over here to our workbench. Okay, perfect. So now we want to mark these tops. Go ahead and mark them. Final marking. And then here we're going to be marking about from here to about here, because that's all we're going to stitch. There to there, there to there, and here to about here ish. And that's where we're going to stop, right? And then we're going to stitch, bevel, sand, and finish our edges. Make sure they're completely done. Yeah. And then we can move on to sandwiching our wallet and finishing it up. So we'll go ahead and make sure that our first tooth is inside there, and make sure that this tooth here fits on the inside, and it does perfectly. And so we know that's where we're going to have our first penetration all the way through our leather. It's going to fit just perfect. So we go from this side back onto here, and then wherever we stop with this, right? So we can't go over the line, so we back it up, and we can go right to the line. And then when we want to turn a corner, we then take our number 2 pricking iron, and then just do 2 at a time. I'm us to turn the corner as we like. And we're going to go to about there. Let's see here. Actually, I think we're going to want to go ahead and cement up to here. We're going to so we'll stop our stitch there. Okay. So because I want to cement here and here to hold this against our exterior, we'll stop this stitch run here, and then when we start the stitch run that marries the two together, we'll start it here and run and continue on down. Okay? Let's think about that. So we'll go ahead and do it on this side as well. Yeah. So we'll take a peek. What I'm doing here is just taking a peek at the bottom, make sure that I'm coming through a good piece. Because since I'm using the camera, I don't get a good backhand whack on that. That piece I did because I'm further away from the camera. So we'll want to give it a good whack there. And do one more here, which should be the same amount as we did it on that side. Perfect. So we're just starting into the corners, and then from here on down will be glued, and the rest of this will not be. So we'll go ahead and do this inner piece here. So go ahead and pop that there. Let's go ahead and do this side. Let's do this side. This one. Now, one thing we'll want to do is we want to be able to come off this side with one tooth. And so that's going to marry up just fine as we do it like this. So basically, instead of coming from here and coming down, I came from here and went in, and it would have been a little over. So I come back in just a little bit, and then pop it there, which is the best of both worlds. So it still kind of gets us where we want to be, but it still marries those up, and it makes it look like a real nice one run with where the spaces don't run into each other. Now, sometimes you'll have what they call long or shorts, and eventually I'll show you how to take care of those. Sometimes your leather will not always measure up correctly, and your holes will not measure up, and so you will have a situation where you will run too short, and you'll have two holes close together, which will be a short, and then you'll also have one where you're making your mark and it's not quite enough to go ahead and pull it down and add an extra level. And so you'll make it, instead of doing that, you just won't do the stitch at all. And then you'll do what they call as a long stitch. But you want to put that long stitch in a place that it's not seen. And I'll teach you later how to do that and where the best place on your product is, if you have a short or a long stitch, where it's most likely not to be seen. Okay? So, now that we've got all of our holes punched here, and this will be for the top of our wallet. I always like to flip it over and make sure that I did in fact stitch these two pieces down. I've done that before. I have gotten going and forgot where I was at and flipped this over and realized, hey, I forgot to stitch these two pieces. And so, you know, once you do that and you've got this piece already married on, then it's a mess. But if you catch it now, you can go ahead and peel this piece up on this side, you know, or you could go ahead and stitch this in place so that you don't lose your place, and then peel this up, peel it back, okay, and then go ahead and get that stitched so that this is not going to be a problem, and then put you some more adhesive down and then lay this back down, and then it's fixed. So this is the time to always check, make sure that you've gotten everything stitched that you were supposed to have stitched. Okay? So based on that, we now need to grab our Colonial Tan thread. And again, we're going to mark this one from here to here. And we need 4. 1, 2, 3, 4, and a little bit more. Clip it. Okay, that's going to be for that edge. And if we go ahead and mark this edge, so basically mark the whole edge. 1, 2, 3, 4, clip it a little bit more. So now we've got our thread cut for our 2 outside pieces. So all we need to do is clean our thread off of these. And the best way to clean your thread off, for those of you who are beginners, is just to kind of go up next to it right there, like that. Clip it, right? It clips your big pieces. You saw that little piece fly off of there. Put those in the trash can. And you can see that you'll have some stuff sticking out. You can just kind of go in there and take your fingernail and just kind of pick it out where it's at. Sometimes you can just kind of go in there and just pick it like that. And kind of go in there and pick that out with your fingernail. Like that. And that way you don't have to mess with trying to undo knots or anything silly like that. So we'll go ahead and, so again, we just, an easy way to do this is to cut this at an angle, which I did, and then it'll go right in the hole of the needle. Pull that through, get you a good piece through, about that much maybe. come back through and stab in the middle of the thread, push it through, right? Take this end and pull it over the top of that, over the top of this thread, and pull it tight. Okay, makes it a little knot, and then pull this, and that'll make you a little noose right there. And then that'll secure your thread to your needle without putting a big knot there, and it'll allow your needle and your thread to glide through your leather with the greatest of ease. So again, you'll get used to threading the eye of the needle and putting your needle in the center of your thread, pulling it, locking it, and there you go. Now we'll just pull our stitching horse over and stitch these two pieces. And we're at 21, so it looks like we'll have enough time to stitch this. I'll probably go ahead and cut this off so that you don't have to watch. Well, you know what? I'll just go ahead and stitch everything. And if you don't want to watch the whole stitching because you've already seen it before, you can just go ahead and skip this part of the video. That'll be your choice. I always like to do the center first. I'm sorry. The end, left end first. Since that's what we marked our leather to be, right? Now, we're going to do this end will be our back stitching because you want to back stitch. This is where you want your extra strength. This particular part, since I'm going to be going back into this hole and continuing on stitching, that'll make this from here down strong, and so I won't necessarily need a back stitch right here. So I will start some leather makers will go ahead and back stitch this anyway, but to me I don't think it's necessary, and to me it just looks ugly when you got back stitch here, back stitch here, back stitch there, back stitch there. Everything's a back stitch. To me it just starts tending to look kind of nasty. I used to do wallets where I did the entire wallet and I only did 2 back stitches. And you can do that, but then you start with your thread about 6 feet long. And then to marry it together, when you're coming up to marry it together, to even it out, you're standing up and stretching your arms completely over your head. And plus it's harder to manage, 3 feet of thread on each side. So I found that if I just kind of do it this way, backstitch where it makes sense, where you need the extra strength, do it then. Where you don't need the extra strength, don't do it. And it still comes out with a nice product. It's still going to be nice and sturdy. It's going to last 200 years. So yeah, a lot of these leather wallets, components can last over 200 years. There's still leather products that are in service today that's been in service from 200 years ago. The thing is, if they take care of the leather and they moisten it and condition it once a year, then your leather, well maintained like that, will last you several lifetimes. And again, like I said, there's a lot of leather products, even small leather products, that are still in use today that were made over 200 years ago. So, leather is a wonderful product and durable goods that can last over several lifetimes. Stuff that can be passed down from several grandpas on down. And be just as good as it was the day it was built. And if it gets to the point where, back in the day they didn't have great stitching, so some of the stitching would fall apart. But today we have this 7-ply polyester that you can't break with your hands, and it does last forever. But if you didn't have that, you could take the stitching out, restitch it with new stitching, and have old leather with new stitching. And that's the beauty of leather products. So we're going to go ahead and zap the leather thread off this side. Give it a quick little mash down and a tap. The little tap will make the leather flatten out. Give it a nice little look. And then we'll go ahead and take our needles, clean them. Go ahead and put our thread back on our needles. Sometimes that hole is hard to find, especially when you're getting tired. I think it's about 2 o'clock in the morning here. 3 o'clock in the morning, okay, so. I did have a nap, so it's not like I'm totally exhausted, but it does make it a little hard on the eyes to see tiny holes like that. This is a 0.6 millimeter, so a little over half a millimeter thick, and these are what they call a James point think they're 0.007 needles. So there's our piece. So what we're doing is we're putting leather on either side of this, so that when we put this in our, what this is called a stitching pony, okay? This is another piece of gear that you don't have to get when you're first starting. You can get what they call a stitching pony, which I have one down here. It's just a smaller one of these that fits under your butt and then fits between your legs, and then it comes up and then it holds your leather like this, okay, and holds it so you can stitch, because it takes two hands to stitch back and forth. This is a stitching pony, whereas it has a seat, legs, and a hand holder. The difference is the stitching pony is about $30, and this is about $700. So, of course, this is all oak, and you buy it once and it'll last you the rest of your life. So if you know you're going to be doing the leather business, doing it for a while, it's probably good to invest in a stitching horse. And in my course, I will tell you where I got this stitching horse and how to get yours. And I'm going to try to see if I recommend some people, if we can get some discounts going on. It'd be kind of nice. I can't promise that right now, but I'm going to try. I'm going to let them know that, hey, if I give you some people for them to come to you, I want you to give them a little discount for being faithful. So we'll see what they say. Otherwise, you can probably find these type of things, and I'll tell you what they're called and what they are. And if you want to go shopping for them on your own, you're more than welcome to. But the reason I'm creating this course is to take all the headaches and the months and months of searching for the best price, the best product. And I'm telling you, I did a lot of searching on the internet before I bought anything. So I didn't just haphazardly go out and snap buy everything. I made sure that it was a good product. So anyway, back to our stitching. Again, I started at this end with a single stitch, came this way. This will be my back stitch, just as this was my back stitch. So you want to put the back stitches in the same place, so that when people look at it, it looks uniform. Because if it doesn't look uniform, then it'll look kind of off. And people look at you like you're crazy. Or like, what kind of leather maker are you? So, and you want your customers to come back over and over and over. So the more they see good quality, the more they'll come back. I got to a point where I may have said this already, but I had customers coming back buying 5, 6, 7 wallets from me because they like my product. They liked the quality, and they liked everything that I did. And so they were returning repeat customers. And for that, sometimes I would give them a little discount, or I may not give them a discount, but I may give them an extra leather something, you know. If they bought a wallet, maybe I would, you know, toss in a couple keychains, or a dog collar if I knew they had a dog, or, you know, something like that. And they always appreciated that. So those are the things you can do with your customer to let them know that you appreciate them and that you're there to work with them and give them a good deal as best as you can and still provide good top quality for them. So there's your burnishing. I'm sorry. Your clipping, your little tap with the hammer. Looks good. Yeah, looks good. So these two sides, they look the same. So that's good. And so now our last one we're going to have to do is this middle section. So we're going to measure it. And the reason I didn't measure this one with these, because this one's going to be a little bit different lengths. Not much, but a little. So I figured I'd measure him by himself. I used to start with him. I used to start with the middle section first. But as time went on, I did the two outside sections first. And I don't know why I did it that way, but I just ended up that way, and so now I've just always done it that way. You'll find that as you do, you know, this wallet, you'll carry your same techniques over to another wallet. And now bifold's going to be totally different. You'll see as we do build-alongs for bifolds, you'll see that they'll be totally different than a trifold. They'll be similar. There'll be a lot of things that are similar, but there'll be a lot of things that are different as well. So there's a lot of different techniques that you will use on one versus the other that you won't use for the other one at all. Okay? So we can go ahead and put our leather up here to keep from marring. Our leather, once we put it in our stitching horse, is once we clamp this, we clamp it tight to hold it nice and tight. Now on this, we will go ahead and we will be back stitching this. Let's see if I can go ahead and get this right. Let's get this camera right here. Okay. So let's go ahead and back that up. Okay. So on this, we will backstitch this side and we'll backstitch this side as well. So starting here, we're going to start up 3 holes. We're going to center our pieces. We're going to come toward us, right? On the first hole, come underneath, come on this side, go in the middle between the two pieces of leather. Pull it tight. Make sure we're married up, which we are. Go through the second one. And then come back through that hole, those holes that we just came through, in reverse. And that'll be our back stitching, which is just a doubling up of our stitching, which will give us extra strength to hold these pieces together. So as you notice that this will be around this piece of leather here, around it, and that gives it nice and gives it a nice strong hold in that area with the stitching, so that as you put your fingers in there on this end, you know, to put your leather or not your leather, but to put your extra pieces of paper or extra credit cards or whatever you want to carry in those sections, as it gets fat and it starts to bulge, then that stitching, that back stitching, will be there to hold this edging of this side together, because that's where the pressure will be put. Pressure will be put where your corners are and where your outside pieces come together. Especially as people put their fingers in their leather, reach down in there to grab whatever they got in there out. And sometimes they want to clean their wallet out and give it a good mink oil and what have you, and clean it out real well. And so they'll stick their big fingers in there, and it'll kind of stretch the leather out just a tad. But as they go ahead and after they're finished with that, the leather will kind of shrink back in and tighten up again. But that's why we've got to make sure that we always put enough tough stitching in the right place, and what they call back stitching, which makes the stitching extra strong in that area. And that's usually done on ends, or when you go over from a dual piece of leather to a single piece of leather, or you're coming to an end of a run and you want to back stitch. Because in this case, well, in a lot of cases, it's a hidden pocket, or a pocket, external pocket, if you will. It has 3 sides to it, and you'll want to definitely make sure that just get in here and get that in there. Make sure that you get your stitching where the strength is needed. Okay, there's our back stitch on each end. And again, when you're pushing that through, you've got to make sure that you get that pushed into the hole and then pull. See where it's clipped this? I just pulled that off. So had I not pulled that, it would have stabbed that. And then when I went to pull it like this, it would have got hung, it would have stopped, and it would not have pulled the rest of the way through. And it would have made a little bit of a mess, and it would not have closed that leather up. So by making sure you check it, gets it good like that, right? Okay, so we're done stitching our top. Now we're going to show you how to finish it. And we're going to show you how to finish the edge. But you've seen how I finished the one edge, so I'll just show you one little piece and then we'll stop the video. And then I'll complete the rest of it. So there we go. So we got our stitching and our stitching. This will be our internal. So we're going to go ahead and sand this again with our Dremel. One thing that I've noticed is there's a piece hanging over here that if I do it with the Dremel, it's going to smush it and it's going to fold under and it's not going to make for a pretty. So what I'm going to do is go ahead and cut this off with my cutter by coming around, because I've had enough experience with these little overhangs. See, this is a piece right here. And then when I do go ahead and take the Dremel tool to it, it'll look a whole lot better. Yeah. Same thing with this. There's a little piece right there that we're going to want to go ahead and take off. And so as you just look at each side of this, it'll show you, and some, you're taking off little bitty chunks like that. Doesn't look like it's a lot, but I'm telling you, when you're doing your burnishing, that could be a big deal. So now we're going to take our Dremel tool and go ahead and finish this up. Round this and take our wood slicker, slick it up, make this round, and this will be done. It'll be ready to marry together with the outside of the wallet. So I'm going to go ahead and stop this video, and I will do this off camera since you've already seen me do it before. I don't see there a need to do it again. And when I come back, we'll be getting this thing centered up in the center and ready to put this bottom stitch in, and then we'll be able to do our ends, and I'll show you how we do those and the reason why we put these little curves in here, which is to kind of have a little pressure point, takes off the pressure so that you can fold your leather in and it looks nice. Okay, so don't forget to subscribe and like, and please hit the subscribe on every one of these if you would. I need 1,000 subscribers so that I can continue making videos like this for you, so I can get me some sponsors and maybe get some equipment, some better equipment, so I can have better YouTubes with better equipment, and I can promote those particular sponsors, and everybody wins in the end. So take care. Have a wonderful rest of your day. Bye-bye.